Hey guys, and welcome back to True Time Cracker Jacks. Today I'm going to show you how to make small batch strawberry jam. This is super simple, only requires 3 ingredients. There's no need for any pectin, there's no need for any gelatin, there's no need for any candy thermometers, there's no special tools, no special equipment for this, and it only makes just over a pint of finished jam. So without further ado, let's get started. So obviously the first ingredient that I need is fresh strawberries. Here I've got 2 pounds of fresh berries that I've gone ahead and washed, rinsed off, and using a melon baller, I'm just going to top and chop these berries. Basically all I do is scoop the top, the leafy part out of the strawberry, and then using the melon baller part, I just kind of roughly chop the berries into pieces, throw them into a bowl. Now this recipe only uses 2 pounds of strawberries. Like I said in the beginning, it only makes just over a pint of finished jam. I know there's tons of recipes for strawberry jam out there in internet land, but most of them require, tons and tons of berries. Puts up way more strawberry jam than most people, ever even really use in a year. So that's the nice thing about this recipe. You only need 2 pounds. Now, once you get all of your strawberries topped and chopped, you're going to add some lemon juice. I'm using fresh lemon juice here, so I'm using a large lemon. You're only going to need half of that, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half and only juice half of it into my strawberries. If you are using a bottled lemon juice or ready-to-use lemon juice, you're only going to need about a tablespoon here. But using a fork, I'm going to juice this lemon into my strawberries. And I wasn't thinking at the time, so I got lemon seeds into my strawberries. No big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and fish them out here in a minute. And then you want to add in 2 cups of granulated sugar. This is just plain old white sugar. Using a spatula, you want to toss this so all of your strawberries get coated in that sugar. Basically what we're going to do here is macerate our strawberries. The sugar is just going to help release all of the water and moisture in the berries. It's going to actually cut down the time that we need to cook this. But just go ahead and make sure that all your strawberries are completely coated in that sugar. It's also going to help kind of dissolve the sugar in the process. You want to leave this on your counter to let macerate for about an hour or so. You can even do these overnight if you wanted to cover them and put them in the refrigerator. That's perfectly fine, but an hour is usually sufficient on the countertop. And after about an hour, you can see our fully macerated strawberries, how much juice this sugar has allowed these strawberries to release. It's really soupy, it's really juicy, it's pure deliciousness at this point. But you want to transfer this to a large pan because we're going to cook this down now. Now, as far as pan size, I'm using a 4-quart pan. You want to use at least a 4-quart pan for this because this is going to kind of bubble up and foam up. You want to make sure that your pan is big enough that none of that's going to overflow the top of your pan because it's just going to make a sticky mess. So make sure that you use at least a 4-quart pan for this recipe. And over medium-high heat, we want to bring this up to a boil, stirring constantly. Now, throughout this entire process, you're going to need to stir constantly. This is not something that you can just put on your stove and walk away from. You need to baby it. Since we're not using pectin, we're not using gelatin, we're not using any of the fancy stuff, it's just sugar and berries and lemon juice. You're basically making a strawberry candy here. We're going to have to cook this down until it is the proper consistency. Now you can see here my berry mixture has started to come up to a boil, and this is really the time that you want to adjust your heat. If it starts sticking on the bottom, you're going to need to take it off and lower the heat. Once it starts sticking and burning on the bottom, game over. There's no wiggle room there. So turn your heat down between medium and medium-high. Again, stirring constantly. I cannot stress that enough, to stir constantly during this process. You can see how it starts to foam up quite a bit as you're stirring it. If it starts to get up to the very top of your pan, just go ahead and lift your pan up off the heat and again continue stirring, and that'll help kind of the foam retract down a little bit. And here we are after we have cooked this for about 20 minutes or so. We're about halfway through now. You're still going to need to continue to stir this constantly, but you can see the foam, the color of the foam has darkened up quite a bit. The mixture has thickened up a little bit, but we're still going to need to cook this down. So again, with the heat between medium and medium-high, I'm going to continue stirring and continue reducing this mixture. Now you're probably wondering, without a candy thermometer, how do I know that this is done? Well, there's a couple things that you can check for. The first is the foam of the strawberry mixture. When this is done cooking and it is at the proper temperature, the foam on top, you will actually be able to stir it in and you won't have any more foam on the top. That's one way that you know that it will be done. Second way that you'll know that it'll be done is the sound of the boiling is going to change on you. It's no longer going to sound just like boiling water. It's going to sound like it's boiling something thick. And it sounds identical to if you've ever made pudding from scratch, or custard, or even just gravy. It's going to sound really thick. And the bubbles popping you'll know it when you hear it. So as you can see here, as I'm stirring this, the foam has gone away. The bubbling has kind of ceased a little bit. So I know now that my jam is done. But if you want to take one more measure and make sure that your jam is done, what you're going to want to do is take a plate at the beginning of this process and put it in your freezer. Once you think that your jam is done, you want to take a spoonful of that and put it onto the plate that has just been taken out of the freezer. You want this nice and frozen cold. Just spread out a spoonful of your jam on the plate and run your finger straight through it. And when you tip that plate up on its side, if it stays put and that line that you drew in with your finger stays put, you know that your jam is done. Now don't worry about that jam being extra hot. Putting it on the frozen plate cools it almost instantaneously. Now I'm not going to be processing this jam, and I know most people don't have the equipment to process this. I understand that it's a small batch, so all I'm going to do is transfer this mixture into jars. Because that jam is so hot and it's essentially a liquid candy, you want to make sure that your jars are also hot. So put some boiling water into your jars, let them sit for a good 10 minutes or so and let them come up to temperature so they're nice and hot. And then you can add your hot jam to the hot jars. And I'm just using a canning funnel here to do this and a little ladle. Like I said in the beginning of the video, this makes just over a pint of finished jam. So I've got 3 half-pint jars here. Each half pint is 8 ounces. But just go ahead and top those off, and then you can add lids and bands to these. And again, because we're not processing these, you're going to need to store them in the refrigerator. Now, even though we didn't process these are still going to last right around 6 months or so in the refrigerator. Just go ahead and make sure that you write on the top with a magic marker or put a piece of tape or something on it and write on that the date that you cooked this. But then go ahead and store this in the refrigerator, and then you can use it for whatever you prefer to use jam on. Most commonly, I have mine on buttermilk biscuits or on a piece of toast, as you can see here. And you can see, without using pectin, without using a candy thermometer, no special equipment, this is perfect consistency jam. And I know people are going to ask this in the comments, can I use other berries besides strawberries? Yes, you can. This works just the same with all the berries. I've successfully made this using just blueberries, just raspberries, using a mixture of blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries, using strawberries and blueberries together. Any combination of berries that you want or any single berry that you want, this all works the same for. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoy learning how to make strawberry jam, small batch style, without any special tools, equipment, or ingredients. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. Subscribe for more deliciousness and to keep up to date on all my latest videos. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.